Humanity's first contact with the Galactic Empire is an event that has been long anticipated for centuries, the moment when humanity steps onto the galactic stage and meets a civilization far more advanced than their own. They've trained for this moment, prepared in every possible way. But nothing could have truly prepared them for what they were about to encounter. The humans stand aboard their first intergalactic ship. The vessel is massive, a sleek design of metal and glowing lights, stretching for what feels like miles as it orbits a distant planet beneath them. The humans are awestruck by the sight. The entire crew is silent as they take in the view of the Galactic Empire's capital. From the windows, stars shining brightly through the dark expanse of space. The station itself is even more impressive, larger than anything humanity has ever built, a monumental feat of engineering that seems to dwarf the human ships that have traveled here to make contact. The humans stand at the ready, having studied the protocol for first contact with extraterrestrial species. But as they approach the docking bay to meet the Empire's leaders, something about the entire atmosphere feels strange in a way they can't quite place. The chamber they enter is pristine, and cold marble floors gleam under bright white lights. The air is filled with a sense of calm, yet something about the silence makes it feel as though it's on the verge of tension. The humans line up waiting for the Empire's leaders to arrive. Their uniforms are crisp and polished, the sharpest attire they can muster. As the moment draws near, the hum of the room grows louder, and the metallic doors open with an echo that sends chills down their spines. The entrance is grand, and when the Empire's leaders step into the room, the humans can't help but stare. The beings before them are towering, their forms elegant and rigid. They wear gleaming silver armor that shines like the stars in the sky. Their eyes are hidden beneath visors, but the presence they exude is undeniable. They move with such grace and authority, every step calculated, every gesture deliberate and controlled. The humans feel a sudden wave of intimidation and awe at the sheer presence of these beings. But then the leader steps forward and begins to speak, his voice deep and commanding as he declares the glory of the Galactic Empire and the power it holds over the countless systems and civilizations under its rule. The speech goes on with great detail as the leader describes their empire's ancient history, their unyielding dominance, and their superior technology. The humans listen attentively, but something strange begins to happen. Their attention starts to wane, not out of disinterest, but because there is something almost comical about the way the alien speaks. His words are overly dramatic, the pauses in his speech feel endless, and the emphasis he places on every syllable makes him seem less like an imposing leader and more like an actor reading lines on a stage. At first, the humans try to contain their reactions, but as the speech continues, they start exchanging glances. Small smiles creep onto their faces, and before they know it, some are stifling quiet chuckles. Their attempts to be respectful fail as their suppressed laughter begins to slip out. The leader notices the faint sounds and stops mid-sentence. His eyes narrow behind the visor, and he pauses, waiting for an explanation. As his piercing gaze sweeps across the room, the humans quickly regain their composure and try to hold back their amusement. But it's impossible. The room is too stiff, too formal, and too serious. Every gesture the leader makes, every word that escapes his lips, feels so incredibly over the top that the laughter becomes uncontrollable. And as they continue to suppress their mirth, one human lets out an audible snicker, another stifles a snort, and soon enough the room is filled with suppressed giggles. The leader falters, unsure of how to respond to what he clearly perceives as mockery. But none of the humans can stop themselves now. They try to hold it in, but it's as if they can't help but find the entire situation completely ridiculous. The alien leader's voice falters as he pauses mid-sentence, his gaze sweeping the room. The silence that follows feels heavy, but for the humans the weight of the moment is broken by the muffled laughter that continues to echo through the chamber. Their faces turn red as they struggle to regain composure. Some turn their heads away, trying to hide their smiles, while others bite their lips and grip the edges of their uniforms to hold back the laughter that threatens to erupt at any moment. The alien leader stands there, frozen, unsure of what to do next. He looks to his fellow delegates, hoping for some form of guidance. But they too are looking around in confusion, trying to understand why the humans seem so amused by their solemnity. His tone grows more serious as he speaks again, emphasizing the might of the empire and the grandeur of its civilizations. With every word, his gestures grow more elaborate, each movement more exaggerated, as if to prove his power and control over the situation. But to the humans, it only becomes more absurd. The leader raises his hand, in a dramatic flourish, his fingers, curling with a grandeur that seems far too theatrical for such a serious occasion, and as he does, a ripple of laughter sweeps through the humans again. One by one, they let out soft chuckles at the sight of his overly calculated motions. It's almost as if he is performing for them, rather than speaking to them seriously, and the more he tries to convince them of the Empire's superiority, the more comical it becomes. The humans start to exchange knowing glances, their eyes twinkling with a shared understanding of just how ridiculous this all is, each one fighting the urge to burst into laughter. But failing as the alien leader continues his impassioned speech, they watch as he gestures toward the holographic displays behind him, showcasing the immense power of the Empire's military fleets. Entire star systems that they claim to control are mapped out before the humans with bright red dots, marking their dominance over every single one. The humans can see the entire display, and they can't help but appreciate the grandeur of it all. But the presentation is marred by the leader's inability to maintain any natural demeanor. Each movement he makes feels like he's rehearsing for a play, and the humans find themselves laughing not at the Empire's power, but at the over-the-top nature of the entire performance. One human finally cracks under the pressure of trying to maintain a serious expression and bursts out in a loud laugh. The sound echoes through the room as it ripples across the others, each of them losing the battle against their amusement. The alien leader stops mid-sentence again, his posture stiffens, and his eyes narrow once more as he tries to process what is happening. The humans are still laughing softly now, but it's clear that they aren't trying to hide it anymore. The leader stands tall, trying to assert his authority, but the laughter only grows louder with every second now. The humans can't hold back at all. Their laughter is no longer subdued or polite. It's open and free as the entire room erupts in amusement. No one can contain themselves, not even the diplomat who was supposed to lead the discussion. The diplomat steps forward, trying to regain control of the situation. But as he opens his mouth to speak, he finds himself grinning uncontrollably. His eyes water from the force of holding in his laughter. But every attempt to speak only makes it worse. The alien leader watches him closely, his confusion growing with every passing moment. His fingers twitch as if preparing for an immediate response. But even he is uncertain how to react to this strange and unexpected behavior. The diplomat takes a deep breath and finally manages to speak in a tone that is far more relaxed than it should be. He tries to apologize for the laughter and assure the aliens that they mean no disrespect, but even the apology itself comes out wrong as the words slip from his mouth with a touch of unintentional humor. He looks around the room, his face flushed and his shoulders shaking with laughter, trying to keep a straight face, but failing miserably. The alien leader's confusion deepens as the diplomat continues to speak. His words now seem almost unintelligible as his attempts to apologize are drowned out by the laughter that fills the room. The leader blinks several times, trying to process the bizarre scene unfolding before him. He straightens his posture and turns to his fellow delegates, his face hidden behind the visor. But the tension in the room is palpable. They begin whispering amongst themselves, their voices low but urgent, as they try to figure out what is happening. Are the humans mocking them? Is this some sort of cultural insult that they don't understand? The leader nods as if making a decision and turns back to the humans. He speaks again, his tone now sharper and more forceful as he demands an explanation. His voice no longer has the calm authority it once did. Now it has a sense of frustration to it. But the humans can't stop laughing. They try to hide their smiles behind their hands, but it's impossible. Their faces are flushed with mirth and their eyes sparkle with amusement. The alien leader stares at them, expecting an answer, but the humans can't provide one. They try to compose themselves, but each time they glance at the leader's dramatic posturing or the exaggerated gestures of his fellow delegates, they break into laughter again. It's clear to the leader now that no matter how serious he makes himself appear, nothing he does can stop the laughter that has erupted in the room. He looks to his officers for support, but even they seem unsure of how to respond. One of the officers steps forward in an attempt to assert some kind of order, and he too adopts a more commanding stance, raising his hand to silence the humans. But the second he does, the humans erupt into fresh fits of laughter. The officer's hand freezes in midair as he realizes what's happening, and his expression shifts from one of authority to one of utter confusion. The humans continue to giggle uncontrollably, now unable to contain themselves in the face of such overwhelming absurdity. The officer lowers his hand, his gaze turning to the rest of the alien leadership team. They all seem lost, unsure of how to regain control of the situation. They exchange looks and quietly confer amongst themselves, all while the humans in the room continue to snicker and chuckle. The leader takes a deep breath and straightens his posture once more. His voice quiets for a moment as he speaks through clenched teeth, as if forcing himself to stay composed. He begins again, this time with a more restrained tone, trying to salvage what dignity he has left. The words come out with a certain sense of finality, as if he's determined to impress the humans with his might. But each word lands more awkwardly than the last. The humans try to suppress their giggles, but it's a losing battle. The humor of the moment is too much to handle. Each time the alien leader attempts to speak, the humans' laughter intensifies until it's almost like a ripple effect. One laugh sparks another, and soon enough the room is filled with an uncontrollable chorus of mirth. The leader's hands curl into fists beneath his armor. He's starting to realize that no amount of pomp or superiority can change the fact that he is the object of mockery. In this room, the once imposing figures now seem comical in their seriousness. The humans are laughing not out of malice, but simply because everything about the meeting feels so over the top. It's all too much to take seriously, and despite his growing irritation, the alien leader can't seem to stop himself from feeling an odd sense of helplessness. He has never encountered anything like this in his long career. There has never been a species that could laugh in the face of his empire's power, and yet here were these humans who seemed to laugh at every gesture, every movement, every word, and the laughter continued unabated. Despite their best efforts, the humans simply could not stop. The absurdity of it all was too much, and the room filled with the sound of it, echoing across the chamber. The alien leader stands at the front of the room, his gaze hardening as he watches the humans around him still laughing uncontrollably. His pride as an ambassador of the Galactic Empire is now bruised beyond recognition. He had come here expecting to make a grand impression, hoping to show humanity the superiority of his civilization, but instead, he has become the source of their amusement. His fists clench tighter under his armor, and his posture straightens with forced dignity. But each time his eyes meet the humans' faces, their laughter only grows louder. They continue to snicker and chuckle, as though the entire situation was some kind of cosmic joke. The leader's frustration begins to mount, and he turns to his fellow delegates with a subtle motion, hoping they can help restore some semblance of order. But even they seem to lost, their faces hidden behind their helmets, but their body language is tense and confused. One of the officers steps forward again, trying to assert control. This time, he moves more cautiously. He raises his hand in a silent gesture, hoping to restore calm in the room. But the moment the humans catch sight of the officer's stiff pose and the absurdity of his commanding gesture, they erupt into more laughter. The officer freezes his hand, still raised in the air, as he realizes that every move he makes only fuels the situation. He looks to the leader for direction, but even the leader seems uncertain, unsure of how to proceed in the face of such strange behavior. The tension in the room grows thick, but it is now a tension tinged with a strange mixture of bewilderment and helplessness. The humans try to steady their laughter, but it is like trying to hold back a tidal wave of emotion. It washes over them again and again. Every word the alien leader speaks, every motion the officers make only adds to the absurdity of the situation. The alien leader takes another deep breath, his chest rising and falling with the effort to maintain control. but it is becoming harder and harder to keep his composure. He looks out at the humans once more and tries to speak again, this time his tone softer and more measured. But as he does, he gestures slightly with his hands, and the humans lose it once again. The motion seems so calculated, so deliberate, that it feels like something out of a performance rather than a conversation. One of the humans even whispers under their breath, "Is he about to start singing?" And the laughter only escalates from there. The leader hears the whisper, his eyes narrowing behind the visor, his anger flaring. But it is too late. The damage is done. The entire room is laughing now, not just at the aliens, but at the situation as a whole. The aliens have become the punchline of a joke they don't understand, and every attempt to regain control only makes things worse. A leader clenches his jaw in frustration. But even this only serves to make the humans laugh harder. He turns to one of his subordinates, a young officer who had been standing quietly in the corner, hoping to avoid the spotlight. The officer is clearly uncomfortable, but the leader gestures toward him, hoping he might help diffuse the situation. The officer hesitates for a moment, and then steps forward as he does. So he takes a deep breath and speaks in a measured voice, trying to appear calm and collected. But as soon as he opens his mouth, his voice cracks slightly from nervousness, and the humans catch it immediately. They begin laughing again. The officer's face flushes behind his helmet, and he lowers his head in embarrassment, clearly overwhelmed by the attention. The alien leader can hardly believe it. This is not how first contact was supposed to go. This was meant to be a moment of glory for the Galactic Empire, a moment when humanity would bow to their greatness. Instead, the leader stands before them, humiliated, unable to understand why their display of power has failed so completely to impress the humans. In fact, it has had the opposite effect. Every word, every gesture, every attempt to command only serves to reinforce the image that the aliens are out of touch, stiff, and comically serious. They are the farthest thing from the awe-inspiring beings they intended to be. And as the laughter continues to echo around the room, the leader realizes that the humans are not mocking them with malice. They are laughing because the entire situation is too ridiculous to take seriously at all. The alien leader stands there in stunned silence as the humans' laughter reverberates through the room. His mind races as he tries to make sense of what's happening. His eyes flicker across the humans' faces, each one grinning or laughing uncontrollably at the sight of the Empire's grand display failing so utterly. He's never encountered anything like this. No matter how hard he tries to appear more imposing, the humans only seem to find his efforts more ridiculous. The more he raises his voice, the more the laughter grows louder, as though his authority has become a joke in itself. He tries to adjust his posture, standing straighter, trying to project confidence. But the more rigid he becomes, the more the humans find it amusing. They are still laughing at his every move, his every word, like he's performing in a circus, rather than standing at the head of a galaxy-spanning empire. One of the humans even goes as far as to imitate his stiff gestures with a mockery that only fuels the laughter further. The leader's pride is beginning to fray, the anger inside him growing. But he knows he must maintain control. He takes a deep breath and attempts to speak again, this time in a more controlled tone. He tries to use logic to explain the might of the Galactic Empire and its power over the stars. But his words seem hollow now, even to him. He watches as the humans look at each other, their eyes wide with excitement, as though they are waiting for the next punchline. Rather than taking him seriously, he pauses mid-sentence. When he sees one human's attempt to stifle a snicker, the human presses their lips tightly together, their cheeks red with the effort to contain the laughter. But it's too much. The human bursts out laughing, and once again, the room is filled with the sound of mirth. The leader's face tightens with frustration, but his efforts to regain the upper hand only make things worse. The more he tries to sound regal and authoritative, the more the humans seem to view him as a comedic figure. Every word he speaks is a line in a bad performance. Every gesture he makes is a move in a clumsy dance. They cannot take him seriously. It's as if he's the star of a play where the humans are the audience, laughing at his every misstep. He can feel his grip on the situation slipping away. His mind is racing for a solution, But it's becoming increasingly clear that there is no way to salvage this. The more the humans laugh, the more his once pristine image shatters into pieces. The Empire's power, the might of its fleets, its technological supremacy, none of it seems to matter now. All they see is a series of awkward gestures and an over-the-top performance that's almost comical in its absurdity. The alien leader's patience begins to wear thin, and he looks to one of his officers, hoping they might have some idea how to regain control of the situation. But the officer looks just as lost as he does, clearly out of their depth in the face of this unprecedented reaction. The leader's hand tightens into a fist beneath his armor, but he forces himself to stay calm and composed. No matter how difficult it becomes, he knows he must maintain an air of authority, even if everything inside him is screaming to leave the room and escape from this humiliating situation. But just as he opens his mouth to speak again, another human steps forward, trying to quiet the others with a hand raised and a broad smile plastered across their face. They open their mouth and attempt to offer an explanation for the laughter. But as soon as they do, the humans around them catch sight of the leader's stiff posture and elaborate gestures, and they can't help themselves. They erupt into laughter, once more, this time louder than ever before. The leader's face hardens and his gaze narrows. But the humans are oblivious to his growing frustration. They are caught up in their own amusement at the sheer ridiculousness of the situation. And no matter how many times he tries to regain control or appear more imposing, they just keep laughing. The sound is like a wave crashing against him. Each chuckle and snicker a reminder of how far his empire's reputation has fallen in their eyes, and it becomes clear to him that the humans are not laughing out of malice or disrespect. They are laughing because they simply cannot take him seriously, and the harder he tries to force them to, the more laughable he becomes. The alien leader stands frozen, his mind swirling with frustration and disbelief. The humans' laughter is overwhelming now. It's no longer confined to a few stifled chuckles or quiet snickers. It's loud and free-flowing. Their laughter fills the chamber like a tidal wave, and there's nothing he can do to stop it. Every attempt to regain control only seems to make it worse. The more he gestures, the more they laugh. The more he speaks, the louder their laughter grows. It's as if the universe itself is mocking him, the powerful and ancient leader of the Galactic Empire, reduced to the subject of ridicule in a room full of humans who have only known spacefaring technology for a few decades. But it's not the humans' lack of understanding that bothers him. It's the fact that they don't fear him or his empire. They find him and his display of power laughable. His pride is in tatters. Every attempt to restore the dignity of his race feels more pathetic, and the last he clears his throat, hoping to regain some control over the room. The sound of his voice is drowned out by the laughter. The humans continue to chuckle with increasing abandon, and there's nothing he can do to command their attention, nothing that can stop the tide of amusement washing over them. The officer beside him steps forward, trying once again to intervene, but it's clear from the officer's stiff stance that even he has no idea how to handle the situation. They both stand there helplessly watching as the humans laugh, as if they are in a theater watching a poorly executed comedy act. The leader glances at his fellow delegates and sees the growing dismay on their faces. They too are struggling to understand what's happening. How is it possible that a species as sophisticated as humanity could find them so ridiculous? How did they lose control of the room so completely? But even as his frustration grows, a small part of him can't help but wonder what is so funny. Is there something in the way he is speaking that makes him seem like a joke to them? He looks at his hands, his fingers twitching as he tries to process the situation. But every time he moves, the humans laugh again. He clenches his jaw, his mind battling against the sense of defeat that is slowly creeping in. But the laughter continues unabated. The human diplomat, who had been trying to apologize earlier, steps forward again, his face flushed with embarrassment, but his eyes are still gleaming with amusement. He opens his mouth and starts to speak, but as soon as he does, the laughter resumes again, this time even louder than before. The alien leader's face tightens in a mix of anger and humiliation. But before he can say anything, the human diplomat raises his hands in a gesture of peace and attempts to explain the situation. He stumbles over his words, trying to regain some sense of control. But the more he speaks, the more ridiculous it sounds. Even he can't seem to find the right words, and every attempt to convey a serious message ends in another burst of laughter. The alien leader watches in disbelief as the diplomat falters, his face turning redder with each failed attempt to calm the room. It's as though they're all caught in the grip of an unexplainable force. Their attempts to be serious only make the situation more absurd, and even the alien leader can't escape the fact that he too is a part of the comedy. The laughter swells around him, and as he stands there with his back straight and his fists clenched, he feels an unexpected shift in his perception. At first, it's just a brief flicker, but then it grows clearer. The humans are not laughing because they find him weak or powerless. They are laughing because they find him human in a way they hadn't expected, in a way he hadn't expected. Either the leader realizes now that the humans aren't mocking his empire or his power. They are laughing at the absurdity of the situation, the idea that being so mighty and advanced could stand in front of them and still fail to connect with the simplest idea of humor. They are laughing not at his superiority, but at the complete lack of it. They see him not as a conqueror or a ruler, but as a figure trying far too hard to appear imposing and grand, but failing miserably. The realization hits him like a shockwave, and for a brief moment, he stands there stunned at how deeply he's misjudged the situation. This wasn't about their technology, their might, or their star systems. This was about something more basic, the human ability to laugh at the incongruity of it all. The alien leader stands frozen as the realization dawns on him. It's as if the fog has cleared, and for the first time he sees the humans not as subjects to be intimidated, but as beings who simply see the world differently. They don't fear him or his empire. They laugh not out of disrespect, but because they find the situation absurd in their eyes. He is just another being putting on a performance, one that has gone terribly wrong. He watches the humans as they continue to laugh. Some are holding their stomachs, others are wiping away tears from their eyes, and in that moment, the leader feels a strange mixture of embarrassment and admiration. The way they embrace the moment with such ease and humor is something he hadn't expected, and he realizes that this may be the very thing he and his empire had missed all along, the ability to find joy in the absurdity of life. The human diplomat finally manages to speak through his laughter. His words are soft but sincere. He tries again to apologize for the laughter and explain that it's not meant to belittle the aliens, but rather to show that they too can appreciate the humor in the situation. The leader watches him closely as he speaks, and for the first time since entering the room, he feels a shift within himself. Maybe this wasn't an insult. After all, maybe the humans weren't laughing at their power or their might, but at the absurdity of trying to appear all-powerful when there was no real need to. The leader takes a deep breath and steps forward, his hands no longer clenched into fists. He stands tall once more. But this time there is no edge to his posture, no overbearing attempt at authority. Instead, he allows himself a small smile. It's subtle, but it's there, and for the first time the humans notice it. The room grows quieter as the laughter begins to subside. The leader looks out at the humans, his gaze softer now, and he speaks in a voice that is calm and genuine. Perhaps it's time for us to look at things differently, he says, his words measured, but with a new sense of understanding. The humans exchange glances, their laughter fading away as they focus on him. The leader continues, his galaxy is vast and filled with many species, all striving for greatness. But perhaps what makes us truly great is not our power or our technology, but our ability to find joy in the smallest of moments. He pauses, letting his words sink in as the humans process what he said. It's not the Empire's might that makes us strong, he continues. It's our ability to adapt, to learn from each other, and to find the humor in the most unlikely situations. The humans are quiet now, their faces still slightly flushed from the laughter, but there's a sense of understanding in their eyes. They're not mocking him anymore. They're listening. The leader looks to his officers behind him, and for the first time he sees them not as his subordinates, but as fellow beings, all of them trying to navigate this strange encounter. The officers shift uncomfortably, but there is a new warmth in their stance too. They are no longer trying to force control. They are standing together now in a moment of shared understanding. The room feels different now. There is no longer tension or awkwardness. There's a sense of camaraderie in the air. The humans are still smiling, but it's no longer at the expense of the aliens. It's a smile of recognition, a smile that says we get it, we're all in this together. The leader takes another deep breath and speaks again, this time with a sense of ease and even a touch of humor. We might not always understand each other, but perhaps we can start by laughing together. He says the humans look at one another and a few of them nod, some even smile. Knowingly, the atmosphere in the room has changed completely. The power struggle that had defined the moment is gone, replaced by a mutual respect born out of shared laughter. The leader feels a sense of relief wash over him. It's as if the weight that had been crushing him is slowly lifting. He no longer feels the need to be the supreme authority, the all-powerful ruler. He feels more human in this moment than he ever has before, and for the first time since his arrival, he feels a strange sense of peace. The humans are not his enemies, they are not beneath him, they are simply different. And that difference is something to be embraced, something to be celebrated. As the laughter finally fades away, the leader looks around the room at the faces of the humans and his officers, and for the first time he feels as if they are all equals, standing together in a vast and uncertain galaxy.